What's going on, guys? What's cracking? So today is a fuel day. So we're finally starting to assemble the fuel system for the Super over here. What I gotta do here first is work on the fuel pump setup and the fuel hanger. There's a bunch of parts here from Powerhouse Racing, which per usual, I love their stuff. Sam and those guys, and then Robert Del Angel over at Real Street Performance. Thank you guys so much for hooking me up, take care of me. So yeah, let's go ahead and go over this thing. I'm gonna show you guys how to assemble one of these and how to go through it step by step, how to wire it, do everything all in one video for you. So hopefully this is a good reference. So let's look at the hanger itself here. Now I've already started doing some stuff here, but I just wanted to use this as a reference. So here's your fuel hanger from Powerhouse Racing. I only put one fitting in it there too. Those fittings will all come loose. The wiring will come like this, and it will come obviously with no pumps in it, unless you order it ahead of time, and Powerhouse Racing will supply the pumps for you. Now for me, I decided not to. I bought my pumps elsewhere. I decided that I'm going to put this together myself. Now what it will come with is this nice fuel line and these PEX, or how you say it, PEX or Plex, or whatever you want to call these clamps. It's going to come with the 3 tubes, and it's going to come with a total of 6 of those. It's going to come with the wire shrink that you'll need too. It comes with pretty much everything you'll need. Now what you will need to do though, one thing you'll have to buy separate is the actual Rouzerville install kit, because what you'll need is this fitting here, and you'll need the actual filter bag. Everything else in there you're not going to be using, because you're always going to use their fuel hose, which is much better than this rubber hose. Even though both can be submerged, this really never goes bad. This hard plastic style hose never goes bad, unlike this rubber hose, which has popped on me in the past. So that is one great thing too, using this kit. Now if you're like me, I'm only using 2 pumps. I'm using 2 Rouzerville 525 pumps. You can also use 450, both fit in this kit and setup, but I'm gonna have to remove one of these fittings. So if you see here, there's a total of 3 fittings here. This very top fitting here, I'm gonna go ahead and remove, because I'm gonna use the very back too, and then I need to plug this off. Before you do that, it is an 1/8 inch NPT plug that you need to use, and I highly recommend using PTFT or PFT paste to make sure this doesn't leak, because this all does feed into one single fitting, and anything obviously if it pressurizes that fitting, that means this can come back out of here. Obviously you don't want to lose any type of pressure to make your pumps work any harder, so make sure you use some type of paste or thread tape to make sure it stays on, but make sure it's E85 safe, because I'm assuming if you're using this, you're going to be running E85. Now before I get too far ahead here, I went ahead and put the pumps in. I did not tighten down those bottom bolts there, and make sure you put the clamps on ahead of time. You want to make sure they're on, because you don't want to try and push those on and then try and pull them off. Once they're pushed onto those bar fittings, it can be a little bit of a pain. Now up top here, you want to make sure with this fitting too, you take your time. You don't want to mar these up. If you have AN wrenches, it does help, so you don't mar your fittings. Now it's going inside the tank, so you won't sit it, but if you're like me, you want it to go on as nice as possible and look as nice. So if you have something that uses an AN wrench, that would be ideal. So I've got that set up, guys. The next thing I want to do is actually do the wiring itself here. For me, again, I'm waiting on a -8 orb fitting here. I'm going to block that one off there. If you guys want to set this up for yourself, this is the way I'm preferring to do it. So you have your -6 over here to the right, and this is my -8 feed. This one here, the furthest one out, is the one I'm going to block off, and then I'm going to use a 45-degree angle fitting, or you can use a straight fitting off of it to then come off your fuel line, that'll then go into the tank, which I'll show you guys in another video. But next up, what we're going to do is actually wire this up. I'm waiting till this weekend to get everything, for the fact that Jose wants me to wire this direct. Now you don't have to do this, guys, not required. Again, this is coming with the Rouzerville kit. You would just take this, use the supplied connectors, which there's 2 of them, use the 2 supplied connectors, crimp these to a red and black wire. So for right here, you would have a black and white and a red and white. Obviously you want to keep those together, because that's the ground and that's the power for those specific. Just like the other ones here, you have a red and black, and then you have another red and black. Obviously the main black one here is the ground, the main red one is your power. These 2 go together, and then you have a solid black and solid red. Again, power, or red one's power, black one's ground. And then you have 3 other wires here. You have a black wire, which is your ground, you have a white, which is your trigger, and then you have a red, that's your power. Again, black is your ground, white trigger, red power. So this is actually going to be for your fuel sender unit, to actually tell you what the fuel level is in your tank. I don't have that out of the car yet, so I'm not going to show you that yet, but I will show you that once I get it pulled out. But what I'm going to probably do different than most of you guys is, Jose is kind enough to actually send me, we're going to actually repin this. So what I'm going to do is, I'm actually taking these out, depin them. All you do is take off this black cover. If you see here in this, you just press on the top of those pins there. So just press up on that and then pull out the back, and they pull right out. I'm actually going to pin this directly to this harness itself. So it's going to be pinned just like that, just so you don't have one less fail point and you don't have to worry about crimping. That would it fail? No, I mean that's how that's been for 4 years, but just to clean things up and OCD, so just helps things a little bit. You don't have to do that, but it is an option for you if you'd like. Alright guys, now that we got the pump situation and everything, now it's time to start wiring. I wanted to make sure everything was set up. I went ahead and crimped all these so they're nice and tight now. You just literally crimp tight them. But now we're going to do the wiring. First thing we're going to do is actually do with the float. This actually gives you a level to tell your gas gauge to say how much fuel do I have. It's only 3 wires. What you have here is a black ground, you have a red power, and I believe this is a I want to say it's like not a switch, but it tells you it's off resistance. You know, obviously where this float is at, it tells you the resistance of it, and that's what tells your fuel gauge where you're at. And then Powerhouse Racing makes it super easy by having a red, black, and white wire. So obviously the one that's now brown is your white wire, but obviously being down the fuel for the last 25 years has turned it to this brownish color, but that is your white wire, just an FYI. So what you'll need to do is, unfortunately, you'll need to cut these wires, or if you can, just depin it, and then you're gonna have to cut them again anyways, depending on what you want to do, but I'm just going to cut them here. I went ahead and strip the wire ends here, put the wire, the crimps on it here. Now, I didn't crimp these down yet. This does come in the kit also. Powerhouse Racing supplies these. These are designed to fit on here perfectly with these two. So I'm going to cut these, strip them, crimp them together, and then you can see, I'll show you on the back where it bolts together. Alright, so now I've got this bolted on, the wires done. You can see they come with 2 supplied bolts here in the back. It bolts right to it. And what I did was I crimped it, used one small green zip tie. You can see there to put the 2, or put all 3 of the crimps together. And then I zip tied the wires here, and then I used 2 zip ties up top. I just don't want this moving at all. Those crimps just always worry me. I mean, that's tight on there, and I want to make sure this isn't rubbing. This is a rounded off edge for the most part. It's not a really sharp edge. I just want to make sure it's not going to hurt anything. I wanted to mention also, if you're a guy out there and your float no longer works, Powerhouse Racing finally came out with a kit that replaces it. And it's actually really cheap. Like, I was really surprised, you know, when you're a company like them, you can pretty much charge whatever you want with something like that because you can't buy them. Toyota stopped, and no one, it's not something you can just make, and they came up with a kit that fixes and replaces it, which is pretty freaking awesome. I'll list that down below too. But next up, what we got to do is now start pinning this directly into the Walbro pins. Like I said, I'm not going to actually just crimp these together since I can actually pin these unlike I could this. I wish I could have pinned that. I guess I could have come down here and soldered it, but I didn't want to take that chance. This I'm going to pin together directly. This way there's one less chance of a failure. Alright guys, so you can see here the first one is done. I went ahead and connected it to. I crimped directly into these lines here. Jose Valle at Kaizen Motorsports was kind enough to send me these pins for it. I'm not sure what the actual pin part number is, but it works for these Walbro pumps. And I pinned to it directly and then plugged it together. Now again, you don't have to do this. I want to reiterate that. You don't have to do it. You can just use crimps on this and then crimp to this line and then obviously have your connector that goes to it. That's actually a lot easier, but this is much better. Jose suggested this, and I think it's easier in the fact that I have less worries in my head thinking about those crimps coming undone versus doing it this way. It's one less connection. Is it overthinking it? 1000% I think it is, but I'm happy with this. Now we just got to do these other 2, and the third set I'm just going to bend up like I did this here. Don't want to destroy the line, so I can left a nice little U in it. I'm just going to hold up and I'll zip tie that out in the way, and then I'll show you guys when it's done, and then we'll put this back in the tank. Okay guys, so I want to show you back here too before I pull this all out. I have everything installed, but I'm going to show you everything because there's not really much to show when you put them in. You put the hanger in and it falls in, and then you have to plumb the wiring, but I'm going to show you it all here. But this is my aftermarket fuse box I use, and I'm actually mounted here so I don't have to drill into the body. I'm really weird about drilling into the body and stuff, so I used a pre-existing hole here with a little clamp. And this is my fuse box, has 2 fuses in it for dual pumps, has my relays, everything in this nice sealed contained unit. Pretty neat little thing. Kaizen Motorsports makes that too, which I always really liked. But let's take this cover back off and let me show you how it's all done and wired up now. So everything's wired up. We've got the pump and everything down the tank. So let's start from square one here. Before we talk about the wiring, let's talk about getting it in. Dropping in, it just drops straight in. Now, obviously with the floater and stuff on it, you have to move it side to side some, but it goes in pretty nicely. There's another company, Radium Engineering, who makes something like this. But honestly, it's a pain in the butt to get in. You actually have to slowly remove some pieces, and it's not a good way of doing it. This actually just drops straight in, which is nice. On top of it too, the wiring for this is a lot better than the Radium Engineering one, which is actually mil-spec'd in versus using a little, I want to call them like lock nuts on each wire. It's just a very poor design. This I like a lot better for the wiring reasons. But the next thing is how they have all the AN fitting set up. So this is your return coming in. I made a line here, it comes up, used a 90-degree fitting for your return. This is one of your vents, and this is your feed line here. Now I blocked off the other feed here because I'm only using 1-8 feed. Powerhouse Racing will supply this block off then for you also. Now you're going to have to tap into the factory wiring. Now for the factory wiring, the only thing you're going to use is the 3 wires. Okay guys, remember there's 3 wires that we use for the actual float itself. And Powerhouse Racing makes it easy again. They make the color of the wire up top the same as the factory wire, pretty darn close. Obviously the factory wire has its own specific, but like a yellow and green wire, if you look over at the yellow and green here, would match up with the yellow and green over here. The brown, I believe it's brown and yellow there, or black and yellow, matches black and yellow, and the brown wire to the brown wire. Can't mess it up. Makes it really easy. Again, I decided to pin it with Deutsch connectors here. This way it has a clean disconnect. If I need to get this out, boom, I pop it off and it's easy. Now you'll see a blue power wire here and another white ground. This is to your factory fuel pump setup, and you will not, I repeat, will not be using this. It is not needed, as you'll be using an aftermarket relay box, and this stuff isn't needed anymore. Now when you come over here, you can see where I have the card terminated and grounded here. Now some people run up to the battery, you can terminate here to the back. I ground off and sanded the bottom of this. Use two 14 gauge wire. All this stuff that they use is 14 gauge wire. I believe this might be even 12 gauge. This Powerhouse Racing stuff seems a little bit thicker and bigger, but I know all the Walbro stuff is 14 gauge, and I actually used the black 14 gauge wires that I didn't use in the tank up here. I just stripped the wire, pinned it in here, and then stripped it down here and used two, I guess they're called O terminals, to get it to attach to the body here. Now I'm trying to find a good way to mount this because I don't want this moving around here, right? That's how you break wires. So that's how I have it right now. Again, I'm going to actually disconnect this so I can show you the back side of this pin, or this connector I should say. If you guys can see here, this uses 6-pin Deutsch connector. I've got the solid red at the top, then I've got a white and red, and then the black and red, and then I have the grounds that match up to them on the opposite side. Now I'm only using 2 pumps, but I went ahead and decided to pin it all just to be done, so this connector is all set up. And then over here, I only have two power wires, the red and brown here, or gray wire, are both power wires. Then these 2 grounds go to these. I don't have a third setup right now, and also don't have enough fuses for it and relays, but I only run 2 pumps, so it doesn't matter. But that's all you guys need to do for that. Like, just get a set of Deutsch connectors. 6-pin connector will work. Again, this is 14 gauge wire, both down in the tank and out here. And then you can just pin it. Or if you want to disconnect every time, you can use crimps. That's 100% and solely up to you. I prefer not to, as I just disconnected that now. If I disconnect that, boom, take the lock ring off and pull this out. That to me seems a lot easier, but hey, do whatever makes you happy. If you guys have any questions or concerns, please feel free to hit me up. Again, this all came from Powerhouse Racing. The fuse box is from Kaizen Motorsports, from Jose. I can't thank these guys enough. Alright guys, on that note, I'm signing out here. If you have any questions or concerns, down in the comments, let me know what you think. I'm so excited to get this going. Let's see if she runs.